Welcome to Grover Load. I'm Anthony, and here we go. Outlook now and Microsoft just to seem to be a collection service of data. And it's no longer even a good email service. And now this is with Microsoft's new or their Outlook for Windows, right? I can't. Proton had this article, and it's been out there in some other areas. But Microsoft has 772 external partners in an ad delivery system for their Outlook, and this is something that Microsoft, I think, just they got to get rid of this. But will they? I doubt it. I think they're seeing this as an ad revenue stream for them and as a revenue stream, and eventually it will probably come back to bite them. You know, they had gone through and said how Edge is so privacy focused, and if you still believe that after this, uh, um, you need to reevaluate. Let's just put it that way. This is very troubling. Now, this is a pop-up. There is a pop-up that comes up if you're in the EU, I believe, and they were able to take a screenshot. You're able to manage the preferences and reject all, but this is one of those things that it should. To me, if you want to collect data, there has to be, a good enough value back on that. And having a program like this that manages email, I don't think is that. Now, if you want to charge maybe a couple dollars or whatever else per year, that would be fine. For those that are in Office 365 or Microsoft 365, this shouldn't even be, you shouldn't be even putting ads there. I am starting to believe that Microsoft's poor filtering of junk mail is because they're allowing ads through. Um, I I can't explain how bad the email has gotten. So I have a couple Microsoft addresses. I have Gmail, I have Proton, I have a lot of email addresses. And so I get to try out all of these different services. And the spam has just gotten horrible on the Outlook email addresses. It is just insane how bad it's gotten. And I report all the junk, the phishing emails, all that stuff, and it hasn't gotten any better. And you have to kind of go back that maybe it is the 772 eyes that are trying to watch you that Microsoft is willing to sell that data to. I think with all of this, you have to not trust Microsoft putting its best foot forward to be privacy for the users. I think that it's been a trail that we've kind of known that Microsoft's been going down, but now it's so out front with Microsoft declaring it. Understand this, right? Microsoft does not have your privacy at its forefront, and it does not care about your privacy, no matter what it says about any of its products now. You cannot say it's privacy focused. You cannot say that it is, benefiting the consumer with this stuff. As soon as you encroach and have all these 772, right? That's a little ridiculous of these third party, inclusions. It is no longer about what is best for the user. It is what is best for the company's bottom line. And once a company that kind of does that, I highly suggest people to, proceed with caution. And if you can, go to alternatives. Um, you know, there, I mean, remember when they went after Google for reading their email, for reading your emails, Gmail? Does anyone remember that? Or is it, and Microsoft then does this a couple years later. It just, to me, Microsoft, you were on a good foot. You were going down. And now, I guess you're trying to beat out Apple, and you did beat out Apple on market cap, and that isn't enough. So now you're going down here, and you're destroying, any good faith you had brought up. There's ads in Windows. There are ads all over the place. How many of these third-party, ad things are inside Windows, right? They put ads inside as if they were an email to you when they're just an ad in there. And you don't get those if you're on Microsoft 365, but you still have that side of things, right? And if you connect in emails, you have to, you might be able to go in and take off advertising preferences, but there shouldn't be advertising preferences to begin with. It is a program here inside of that. I get it if you're using, Outlook. I don't even get it if you do that, especially if you pay for it. But if you're paying for Office 3, Microsoft 365 or Office 365, you buy and um, you have this program. And for me, I get in aspects where you need to make money, right? And I'm going to speak to, let's say you have a small platform. Let's say Proton much smaller. Let's say even if it's like me out of my house, I want to develop something, and maybe this might kick my butt into gear, maybe to, if I ever get time to develop a email app, I don't know. We'll see how much time I have for that. But for that endeavor. But this is a kind of thing where it just drives me up the wall of why can't you, develop a good program, nice, solid, and be that a cornerstone. You might be able to then charge for it elsewhere. You charge for Office, you charge for all these other platforms. You charge for expanded OneDrive. And then it all of a sudden makes me think, well, maybe I should start switching to a different platform. Maybe I should start switching, moving all my files to something different. When you start up on that side of things, I think, moving to a different product, people that are paying for these subscription services, and then you want to add in, and have all these ads, why am I paying for that subscription service? And I guess I can move to a different one. Granted, it is a change, but is that change worth it? And I think in this case it is. You know, has Microsoft as a whole changed anything for the better within the last few years, 5 years, 10 years? Since Windows 7, Windows XP, Windows 7, has anything improved for the better since that time? OSs, anything else? They've gotten better in cloud. They they have more, I would say, more bugs in the OS than before. Um, they move around your start menu. They change things without thinking of how it operates for a user. There is a lot, there they pronounce Edge as being more privacy bound. Can't keep your settings don't sync across devices anymore. I use Brave browser a lot, and definitely check it out. I guess I'm gonna have to do a video on Brave browser. Been using it for years. um, Very, when it was even very, very young and just starting out, great little browser. But your settings sync across to everything. It's kind of nice. Every single computer I have, my settings are synced. My phone, they're synced. It works really nice, and all the settings are over. And Microsoft can't seem to get that right, even on their stuff. And this is just one of those things where I kind of want to talk about it, because it seems like Microsoft is just collecting data, and it's not giving you anything in return, right? Microsoft could easily come out and, you know, um, trim down this, right? I mean, they went through and they talked about how Google's privacy policy of collecting data and everything else. And then what do? They turn around and do the exact same thing a little bit later, right? They were, it seems like that they're following the footsteps of Google, Facebook, Apple, all these companies, of just saying, we want that surveillance revenue. We want that surveillance revenue. And as much as I don't like governments to get involved here, I think governments should stay out of a lot of things. But this encroachment on all the personal data, I think, is one where it's intrusive enough where, the EU is doing something about it. But, I could see where this is going to be uh, an additional headache for Microsoft. Maybe not just from the government standpoint, but could you see where people start turning away from, Windows or another one of their revenues? And this is where, um, I think Microsoft is missing the boat, right? They're going after it for the quick dollar, but they're not going after it as in, is this the best idea for creating a better financial structure in the future? It reminds me a lot of we have to operate quarter to quarter, like it reminds me a lot of US car companies versus, the Japanese car companies. Japanese car companies were focused on, for the longest time, what is going to get us the best return for the consumer in the long run, and consumers are going to stick with this, where the US car companies were focusing on what's going to make the best money for our next quarter. And you saw the improvements in the Japanese cars for a lot, and then you see, well, a lot of the American cars don't exist anymore. So there is that to me. And I have been looking for alternatives a lot of this time, and it looks like maybe this is another thing to kind of move away from. There are other products that say they respect privacy a lot more, and maybe that's what we have to move towards. But these data collection services are just, it's just getting ridiculous at this point. Having one program with 772 third parties in it, and you have to remember that that's an extra, processing power and everything else on there. So you can't say that you're a green company anymore if you're developing this to have a whole bunch of other stuff on it. And at what point does Linux become a viability that people are okay with the change? And I see Microsoft just as a whole, not just the Outlook thing, but as a whole, if you take a step back, as in, hey, you know what? Maybe this is an alternative. Maybe I can get on board with this. Maybe I value my privacy more. And you get those people that are in tech starting to move over, and then you get them to start teaching all their family and friends and everything else. And it's just a progression in there. I've noticed a bigger move on Linux overall, and I'm okay with that, right? I'm okay with more people moving to independence from, a company that doesn't seem to have its customers' best interest at heart. And I hope that games will start being more on Linux and everything else and tested there, and eventually it probably there'll be a bigger pathway for it. But Valve's doing some work there. Steam OS, you get some of these things in there, you get a nice OS that's working quite well, and that's an opening, right? Um, this is one of those things where you start messing with your customers' privacy with the collection, with the ads and everything else. You start adding up, and then the consumer goes, I've had enough. And I hear it because I help a lot of people out with their computers. That's one thing I like to do. Well, how do you get my start menu back to where it should be? Windows 11, that's one of the top ones. Okay, once you get there, why is there these crazy pop-ups that happen coming from the side? you know, you can say, change is good, and I do like change. I like improvements. I like, to move forward in a good way of better software and everything else, you know, but when you kind of go back and people need to get work done, when you add things that prevent that for people, that is not a positive change. That is a backward change, right? To me, software, hardware, right, that sort of thing, the computer, the technology needs to fade into the background so that users are able to get their work done and complete what they want to accomplish. If that software, whatever, is in the way, you no longer have that ability to just for it to fade in the background. And now the technology has become a nuisance to the person, which is going to look for an alternative to be able to complete their task. And I think that's where Microsoft's going. So I know, a long tangent. We started with data collection, and we've gone on to my tangent about Windows right now. But it's something I'm seriously considering moving more towards. I've used Windows a lot. I've also used Linux. I use Linux a lot in other areas, and maybe this is just a natural progression of more people moving to Linux. Other platforms, and I think in the end it will hurt Microsoft's bottom line because they didn't think about the consumer. And when you don't think about the consumer, you tend to ignore the consumer, and you can tend to do things that'll alienate the consumer. And with that, let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. Be sure to leave a comment what you think. If you're using some other services outside of Outlook, let me know. I know that there's been some talk online about, even Thunderbird, but some people like more modern looking items. I know Thunderbird went through an update, but let me know what they are. If they're, you use browser user and all this stuff, let's start dumping that information either here or showing a blog that does that in the comments below, and get that information out there. And if it's something good, I'll do a video on it, because I think that, as people look and people migrate, if we can share this information and have a wealth of knowledge and make it more comfortable for people to switch to, let's say, Linux or even a different email service, or a different piece of software, I think that more people then will be able to jump on board and be like, this is easier than what I thought. When you start doing that, word of mouth will be able to get that moving. But with all this stuff, I think Microsoft is just digging its hole further and further, and the greed of Microsoft is alienating and forgetting what got them there in the first place, which was getting software for people to be able to complete their tasks to begin with. With that, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for supporting and subscribing and hitting the bell icon, sharing the videos. It really does help out the channel. Thank you so much for that. And until next time, God bless.